So hey guys, welcome to La Bóveda Joe. Today we're golden. I mean, we have a huge episode, very important for me as a fan and as a content creator. So this is definitely something I was looking forward to. We have today Andrew Saullo, which is director of the fan film The Keeper's Diary and the upcoming feature fan film Resurrection. It's a biohazard story, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Then we have Becky. She's known for being a walking encyclopedia of Resident Evil lore. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's how I remember it. And they're all members of the Resident Evil team. And the one and only, the original Chris Redfield from the OG Resident Evil game, Charlie Kraslavsky. Welcome to La Bóveda, guys.
Hello.
It's nice to have you around.
Thanks for having us on here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're here today to talk about a little bit of your upcoming film, Resurrection. So, I want to start, of course, thanking you guys for being here. I know you're super busy, and El Joe, and especially La Bóveda community, and everybody who's going to watch this are going to be super happy about it. So, as a fan film, which is, I think Biohazard Story, the Resurrection film that you guys are working on, it's a crowdfunded, and it's a follow-up to the already successful and well-accepted Keeper's Diary, which I got to congratulate you on achieving the approach Hollywood has not. So, congratulations, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
I have some stuff around here. So, the live-action intro in the original Resident Evil was filmed in Japan, using foreign actors as Charlie. It was a small, low-budget shoot that ended up defining a complete franchise. So I have a question just to start. So, Charlie, you were a part of that legendary shoot. How does it feel to now return to Chris Redfield in a fan film that not only honors but expands the legacy you helped launch?
The short answer is amazing, and it's so fun to do these projects. The longer answer would be I really had no idea the significance of Resident Evil or Chris Redfield until about 2018, just through this kind of set of circumstances. Which, just to keep it brief, it's just like they didn't put my name in the credits. I stopped acting not that long after we filmed that, moved to another country. They changed the name of the game. I didn't know that, it was Biohazard when we filmed it. And then in the rest of the world, they had to change it to. So, and it's kind of the same experience for Greg and Eric and Linda. Like, none of us really had any idea what it was. And so at first, it was like this big rush of, once someone kind of figured out who I was, it was like this big rush of, oh, wow, okay, this is kind of overwhelming, kind of cool. And now it's just like something I really look forward to talking about and being involved in.
That's cool. That's one of the, I wasn't expecting that answer. So it's great. So many Resident Evil adaptations, they have budgets, but they always kind of miss the tone, and it's an ongoing discussion in the community always. So fan films like Resurrection might lack millions but overflow with passion. So this is a question to all of you: what do you think Resurrection can offer that a big Hollywood Resident Evil movie usually cannot?
Something that you've never seen before, that for some reason the people that are in charge absolutely refuse to do time and time again. So that's what we can offer. It's an opportunity to highlight some of the individuals that helped launch this multi-billion-dollar franchise, and show what they've been able to contribute and what they can continue contributing to it. And the story that Beggy wrote, it's exactly what you would see on TV or the movie theater. So it's a one of a kind. It's an opportunity for fans to continue seeing what you got with the Keeper's Diary. A little bit different tone, but still very true to the nature of of its core. But yeah, I mean, it obviously we want it to succeed, but if it does fail, that's it. It'll never happen again. So if you're watching, take advantage of it now. And, you know, if you can donate, go over and check out some of our cool perks. There's a lot we have to offer. And it helps fund the production. So this is kind of the only time in history where you'll be able to get something like this.
Yeah, I went in there and saw what you guys are offering, and I'm gonna put the link below so the people that are watching these are able to access this through the video too, because I think it's a very important part.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit of sound, you know, sound design and sound insight. You know, the eerie minimalist soundtrack of the early Resident Evil games, especially Ueda's work, help elevate that tension without relying on constant jump scares. And that's one of the things that throws me off with horror games nowadays. It's like you get so many jump scares through the game that you get tired of it like super quick. Yeah. So how are you approaching sound and score in Resurrection? Are you pulling from that same philosophy of tension through silence and atmosphere, or this is something different?
To a degree, yeah. I mean, we're not going to rely on jump scares the entire time, that's for sure. It's more of like a slow buildup of tension than anything. There are moments where it's more, I would say it's scary for sure, but there's more atmosphere. So like when you watch The Shining, it's more atmospheric and tonal than it is actually scary, or for me anyways. So, and then there's also going to be some bits where there's a little bit more action, or there's a little bit more tactical things happening, or there's a little bit of a drama happening between some characters. So you kind of get a mix. And in terms of sound design and how the older games drew you in with the less is more approach, it's more of a standard, like, as I'm editing, what does it call for? You know, what does the story call for? So it's going to be more of a, what can I put in there as the scene is happening, as I'm editing it. You know, if the sound's not there on set, I'm going to have to search and look like, okay, what fits here? And I kind of just mix my track from there. And the music, I'm trying not, with the Keeper's Diary, I wanted the music to kind of tell the story, to help flow across the whole thing and help you feel what the character's feeling. This one, there's going to be a lot more acting, so sometimes the music won't be there. So you'll have tense music, and then when you need to pay attention to what someone's saying, then it'll kind of quiet down, or maybe it'll be very subtle in the background, you know, just like kind of like ambient music. But we have Dwayne Carlton Merritt, who did The Keeper's Diary, coming back to score this one as well, if we get funded. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Keeping on that line, you know, well, most fans know the games. There's a whole world of side stories, novels, and documents that deepen the Resident Evil universe. And this one's for Becky, because I know that she probably has all these memorized. As someone who, you know, studies the lore inside out, how do you navigate the line between being faithful to the canon and letting a fan-made film like, you know, like The Keeper's Diary or Resurrection reinterpret or expand certain parts of that world?
I think it's really important to introduce traditional elements that people will like to see, and you know they'll like to see, and maybe recontextualize them to strike that balance between novelty and the fundamentals of Resident Evil. So we have like a baseline that we're drawing of, we know the core elements that we want to put into this series, and we think we know what fans would like to see. And we also want to introduce a novel element. We want to explore something new with the bioagent. We want to maybe thematically tie that bioagent to what's going on with the characters so that it means something more.
Yeah.
We don't merely want to set people in a location where the bioagent is the same, all of the BOWs are the same that you've seen. We don't want something that is lacking novelty, but we also don't want to deviate so far from the source material and the core sort of fundamental aspects of Resident Evil that it becomes something more akin to the existing live action adaptations, which are a little bit more experimental, and they try to tell their own story. With RE Netflix, there's like teen drama with elements of RE kind of interspersed here and there. But we want something that is more traditionally Resident Evil, but that also can be taken as a sort of side canon or a head canon. So, for example, if you look at the Resident Evil SD Perry novels, none of them are technically canon. However, all of them can be taken as canon, and I think they may as well be canon because they are so close to the books. And even the two original ones introduce ideas and themes that are very congruent to what you see later in the series. Before the games actually existed, you would see books like Caliban Cove and books like Underworld. Awesome, right? And they would actually flirt with concepts that you would see later from characters like Wesker and Dylan Blake in Death Island. Nicholas Griffith, for example, wants to cleanse the slate, right? So similarly, we want to draw from those traditional kind of ideas and themes, and we want to tell a big story of what's going on with the characters much later on in the timeline, if we were able to follow it up in an unofficial capacity. So if you look at what's going on at the end of Resident Evil Village, and there's some strife between these different affiliations, there's some confusion, there's a sense of betrayal, and that kind of tension and suspense is, it's very much it's very conducive to telling a story with split parties and double agents and espionage. I always think that that's a core element of Resident Evil as well. Mole characters, insiders, you have your Nikolais, you got your Adas, you got your Weskers. Yes. I think that always needs to be there in some capacity. You might see one, you might see multiple, you might see gray lines. You might see very blurry, ambiguous alignments between these characters because it's their later iterations, and I want to show fans a side to them that isn't so clear cut that you have to interpret.
Interesting. The T-virus, it was influenced by real virology and bioengineering research. And even if it's not scientifically accurate, because he has those fiction elements, but it struck a balance between the fiction and the plausibility that sparked imagination. For me, it's very important to hear this stuff because, I was talking to you guys before starting recording, and I became a biologist because of this. Like, as a kid, it touched me so close, that I was ever in wonder, because these, viral outbreaks be realistic, or did they ever influence a view on science and storytelling? And then I start finding all these other, even movies or other games, and that's how I came to be like a super fan of survival horror. So with a bigger cast now and the scope, right? What's your biggest challenge so far in bringing Resurrection to life?
Everything you could possibly think of. Everything. Wow. You just say a word. That's it. It doesn't matter what word it is. It's a problem.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think any of us were quite prepared for any and all of the logistical challenges that come with something of this scope. Getting all of these people in the right place at the right time, often overnight, often in some remote location that we need a specific shot. Might take a couple hours, might take 6 or 7, never know. Get all the vehicles in order, flights in order, everything that you could imagine there, catering, and just really sharp, clear communication, consistent communication between all of the creative parties. With sound and recording sound, there's a lot more involved this time, so we have a professional on board just for that. And it's like last time during the Keeper's Diary, I was able to help a little bit with like boom operator and such, but this time it's like we have a lot more dialogue, we have a lot more story that is told on it with more depth and at a larger scope, and we need to record a lot of those lines in a way that actually captures each of the person's pieces. Even if we dub over them, even if we have pieces in post that we improve on, there's so much more to account for in terms of sound. So that's just one tiny example of like the million things that are larger in scope that, we're having people kind of be more dedicated to their own department and having more like industry professionals in each of the categories. We previously had them as well. Like we had Nuji on board for The Keeper's Diary, did a phenomenal job. So getting a lot of people kind of like of that caliber to be in positions for things like sound recording, sound mixing, any of the other positions, and just like managing everything with lodging and people's energy and flights and extras and many locations this time. There were several for The Keeper's Diary, but there were like several for this one. So
yeah, it's just problem solving, really, is all it is.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
just a big puzzle that you have to put together. Like we had a guy that was letting us use his building, and then he changed his mind last minute, and then we had to call the film office and say, this is what we're doing. And they actually hooked us up with Kevin Costner's studio down in St. George, Utah. So they're letting us use some space there. So it's like all these little things that you just have to solve problems. And we had to prepare every possible thing we could before we launched. Down to the how many specks of dust are on set. Like that's how meticulous it had to be to prepare, to make sure like the budget was proper and we have everything we need. And now the problem is like reach. We're doing okay. We need it's a big goal, but now we need to do what we can. And I'm sure we'll go up in number next month, but now we need to reach more and get out more and social media and all that stuff. So it's just constant problem solving.
Yeah, there's always a constant need to set things in order in every area and aspect that you could imagine. So like for pre-production, it was many months of, is this location working? If we lose one of the critical locations, how long is it going to take to replace? That location, for example, was a big problem, like thing for me to solve, because most of the similar locations that we would have wanted, they don't want to rent it out for a couple months. They want to rent it out for a few years. They're like big warehouse type locations, right? And so if we want a place to build sets or film stuff, and we got to replace it if we lose one, that's like, I can't tell you how many emails and calls I sent and made just to get that one location a replacement, like backfill that location. Okay. And we were very fortunate to find someone that was willing to help us and hook us up and say, hey, they might have something, and they might also fit the very particular demands that you need in terms of timing, and everything's contingent on crowdfunding again. So it's like you need that in the agreements. You need to account for every single detail that could be there. And that's one issue that had taken at the time like weeks, months to resolve, of just constant contacting people like, hey, can we use this? Hey, what kind of price or what kind of agreement could we get for this location for filming? And then there are so many other ones that we've been solving for like 17, 18 months of just who can be available for roles. Casting has been a big thing to fill every single role. Just a lot of people to keep track of. So we've definitely very meticulously kind of kept track of every single person and moving piece that we can. With budgeting, it's like, it's just as meticulous as Andrew said. It's not like, hey, we want to raise this amount of money and then we'll see what we could do with it. It's like, no, hey, we have this vision that specifically has all of these pieces that we need to fulfill that vision. Now let's try to raise the funds that we need for that, so we know exactly what we want to do. Right?
It's so important that you make it that clear, because it's like, there's a lot of people out there that can be confused with how this works. So I can't even imagine all the logistics behind it. It sounds super busy.
Is your mom and dad still going to drive us? That's all I care about.
We'll chat.
Because the banter between you and your parents is like priceless.
Yeah. It's priceless, all right. It's you can't put a price on it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So hey, this one goes out to Charlie. Let's go back to that shooting, right? For the cinematic intro for the Resident Evil OG. So did you guys, the actors, did the voices too?
We didn't do the voices.
Right.
there were voice. I mean, there was a few lines that I did.
Okay.
In the intro scene, but the voices in the game are different. Different people.
I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
always thought that you guys did the voices. That's actually
confusing. Yeah, like Chris was voiced by a guy named Scott McCulloch,
Yeah.
and Barry was, I think, voiced by a guy named Barry.
Yeah.
And what was the name of the lady that was kind of?
I know
Frank.
Linda Harris voiced Rebecca. I think that's her name. And then nobody really knows who voiced Jill. And then Pablo Kuntz voiced Wesker.
Yeah.
Wow,
So in the intro, like where I say, Jill, run for that house, and no, don't go. That's my voice.
okay.
Like in the cut scenes, in the the cut sequences. But in the game, it's Scott McCulloch, who tragically died like a few years later in a car accident.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So right when it switches to that lobby scene, when Wesker is talking with you guys, that's already another voice.
Oh, and all those guys. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting fact. The guys are going to be happy with that one. So you're reuniting with the actors behind that F&B. So what was that reunion like? And did stepping back into those roles come naturally, or did it feel, do you feel like it's going to be like starting fresh?
So the first reunion was kind of the nexus of all of this, that came afterwards, and Andrew had already, mapped out the Keeper's Diary, and that was his main motivation for contacting. At first, he contacted Eric and myself, and then because I think both Eric and I were already friends with Greg on Facebook. So we brought Greg into the mix as well. And so that was like, if you go back and watch that video, it's like we hadn't seen each other in 6 years or something like that, 25 or 26 years. And it felt like we hadn't skipped a beat, like the banter between us. And we didn't necessarily know each other that well, but that was a special shoot that you remember, and Greg, and Eric are both really, really cool, special guys. So Eric, I knew a little bit better than Greg, back in Tokyo. So it was really cool to see them, and mess around and do some fun stuff. And then we also filmed the teaser for the Keeper's Diary. And Eric had to take off early, but we hung out, Greg and Andrew and I, and had a ball. And then we did another reunion not that long ago. What is it? Last year in
April.
April. Once Linda came into the fold, and that was really, really cool too. And we shot the crowdfunding video that time. And Linda, I didn't really know at all. I didn't remember her that well, even from the shoot. And turns out, once you hear her story, like, all of us were through the same agency except her. She was like kind of a top-notch model. Oh, she was only like 15, but she was like working for one of these top-notch modeling agencies. And I guess they added her at the last minute. So like they just brought her to set on the day, and I guess maybe we just didn't interact that much, but she's a really cool gal. And I'm sure like our paths must have crossed in Tokyo, because there was only certain places that you would go as like a Westerner in Tokyo. And so it was fun, recounting stories of places like, the discos and they call them gaijin bars and things like that, where the Westerners hang out in Tokyo, which it's all different now. I was back there just a couple months ago. It's completely different now, but so much fun catching up with them. And all of this takes a long time, I guess, and we're getting old. So we just kind of want to skip to the end and just go and do this project. So please, everybody, don't wait till the last minute.
Yeah.
Start donating. Start donating now.
It's super important. Like it's like even when you're a content creator, like people sometimes overlook the fact that how important that is for you to keep going. So when you have a deadline like this, guys, it's super important. So people from the community, if you're watching and you really want this to happen, please help these guys out. Gonna be doing what we can here in La Bóveda. So
And Eric is a snake-eyed bastard.
I saw that, man. That was so good. That was so good. And I have this question that this is my kid that wrote it. So Resident Evil characters go through intense emotional arcs, and I think we've seen Chris Redfield in the OG series go through a lot of loss, and that results in trauma. And I think I personally think that trauma, revolves around this. The series spins around it. And are you exploring that in certain way in Resurrection?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a method actor. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Sorry. The question. No.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not much of a method actor, but I do a lot of. I do like to really kind of watch films and dissect them and think about what's happening in them. It's almost like I can't enjoy films anymore because I just do that constantly. It's like when you're a kid, it's just, suspended disbelief, and you're in this other world. And then especially like if you're an actor and as you get older, every time, I don't know if it's just me, but yeah, every time I'm like watching a movie, I'm like trying to think of how did they shoot this? And, and how did this actor get themselves into this? Like, cause I can't cry on demand or do any of that. I'm not, that emotive. And you hear about like subtle little tricks that people can do. But there was a bit of, kind of really tough situations in the Keeper's Diary, like the environment that we were shooting in. And sometimes, that can help, depending on what you're going for. It was freezing cold and I was exhausted, but I was playing a zombie. So maybe it kind of helped, in the end.
I kept him up for like 20 hours straight every day. So.
But I think, it's a lot of things that just happen on set that are magic that you can't really plan for. And I think the more you're comfortable with the people around you, the more chance that has of happening. Yeah. And I think we have that kind of chemistry. And, I think we have the kind of people like behind the camera and directing that are going to be able to kind of draw out the performance. And I think good actors are subtle. I think that's the first kind of hurdle in acting is to get over being over dramatic. And then once you get over that and you learn how to be subtle, then it's just a matter of just adding more tools into your tool belt as you go.
Yeah.
By the way, there's no robot on the face of the planet that can do what we did. Typing in a prompt, it just doesn't work. This is the real deal. This is the human experience. What we do is made by people for people with talent. All the artists involved, the cast, the crew. With the Keeper's Diary, we kept the budget as low as possible. We kept the budget as low as possible with this too. But I mean, if you look at Hollywood films, their budgets are just overinflated. Yeah. And even indie projects that make it through the Hollywood system, their budgets are, can sometimes go into the millions. So for the budget in terms of crowdfunding, it may be a little high, but compared to what you're looking at, I mean, it's a fraction of the cost, and you're getting a really good deal out of what we're having to offer for fans between the story, the perks, but it's real. It's real people doing real things, and no computer on Earth can it may be able to replicate images and whatever, but it's not real. This is real. This is what it's about. So,
And this is, I also really think it's very fitting and appropriate that you brought up the topic of trauma and their effect on RE characters, because yes, this story explores that in many facets. I know now, today, it's almost like a popular topic. It's almost like there's a romanticized or seductive element of trauma. We don't want it to necessarily go outside of the bounds of what a Resident Evil story would naturally explore. We want to play within those boundaries, but we definitely want to play. And we want to play with items, things like stimulus generalization, some Freudian concepts, some concepts of basically what that generalization is you're associating one image with another, or one stimuli or sound with another sound, and it sparks different sort of sensations and stimuli that may not actually be there. There's a lot of play of that here, and it is very unique and tailored to what each of the characters has witnessed in the past. There's a lot of that woven into not only the character arcs, but the world itself. So this is set in 2021. All of the events that have happened up until like mid 2021 in the Resident Evil timeline have happened in this unofficial story. So this is like technically taking place a few months after Village. And the events that you had seen Jill go through in titles like RE5, what Chris has gone through in many of the entries, you might see those recontextualized, and you might see different traumas and pains resurface, and you might see them have a new significance and even be reflected in the world, in the specific environments that they are now in, whether that be back home or in the new site that they are deployed out to for the biohazard crisis, a city in Mexico, rather a small town than a city, called Rosa Enferma. So that town has its own significance, has its own history. It has a lot of metaphorical depth there for these characters, and to bring their stories to a new place that it's never been. So, and very much past pains and traumas are a part of that whole story, and of what's going around the bioagent too. So
That's great. That's great, because you kind of like permeated into my next question, which is we know that the Umbrella Corporation's reach is vast and made the original story scary because of their small scale. It was isolated horror, how we call it. So like a mansion, a city, one lab. Yeah. So how do you handle that balance? So you cannot give us a snip there. I was gonna ask, how do you handle that balance in Resurrection? Are we seeing that intimate survival horror experience or something on a wider outbreak level, larger scale maybe?
I would say it's a good balance between the two. I mean, we're a very small production. We want to dream big, but I think if it gets funded and you see it, you'll see that there's the bigger overview aspect, but there's also the more isolated aspect to it as well. So yeah, I think it's a good mix of both.
There are scenes and sequences that are a little bit more claustrophobic and tight and like small and intimate. And it's kind of suffocating. And then there are other moments that it is still small in terms of the set, the personal interactions going on, very kind of close. But what is actually being conveyed, the information, is about a pretty large incident and story. So it's almost like the actual visuals and the storytelling of the film as you see it is pretty tight and sometimes constrictive. But then when you put the whole picture together, it's quite large, what it's all about. So
yeah, that's what I love about RE. It's it's like when you guys used very good the famous Itchy Tasty for the Keeper's Diary. That line, it wasn't just a creepy note in the series. It humanized that transformation from a man into a zombie, something rarely shown so personally in games at that time, right? It was just a note. But in the Keeper's Diary, you nailed it. That emotional core that, like we talk about, Hollywood hasn't.
Yeah.
So now with Resurrection, the scope looks a little bit much bigger since we're talking about it. And I'm getting more familiar with it. What are some of the biggest creative or emotional challenges in capturing that transformation on a feature film level? Are you capitalizing again or using something like that, like you did with the Itchy Tasty to make your to start a thread?
I wouldn't say that there's anything particularly like that, but we didn't want to go full nostalgia with it being more of an original story, but there are some subtle nuances here and there that kind of pull you into where it came from. But this is kind of more original than anything, so if we do that, it would be a completely new thing if the audience captures onto something like that. But yeah, I'm just trying to think. I don't think there's anything like that specific pertaining to that in what we have. It's
more
just very fresh and new.
Yeah, it's more so reverse discovery of an outbreak, in a sense of not like someone's account of it or like a single person's transformation. You might see that going on, like you might actually see it, but more so there is a sort of gradual process of discovery in reverse of where the outbreak originated and why, and who wants what, and why did it happen, who are the players in the outbreak, and what are the components of it, why does it do what it does beyond anything else. Why wouldn't it do something else? It does something very specific. So all of that is kind of to be discovered through kind of bits of suspense and tension. Very suspenseful, kind of dramatic story, actually.
So it's a different kind of writing. It's not like that moment that you're talking about. I very much perceive that as Jack Torrance, all work, no play makes Jack a dull boy. Then you see him staring out the window. It's a different kind of writing than that. So that when you read it, I've never read The Shining. I've seen the movie a ton of times, but I'm sure when you read it, just like you read the note in the game, it's really painting a picture for you. Almost like that scene in Jaws when, what's his name? It's Robert Shaw, the actor.
Mm-hmm.
He is talking about Pearl. No, it wasn't Pearl Harbor. It was a different boat that blew up that he was on during World War II.
Yeah, like Navy guys in the water, right?
Is this painting this picture for you? Ours, we're painting a picture for you, but just not similar to that approach. It's just a little bit different because we're kind of telling a story of where these characters are now and what happened to them after what you see in the games and whatnot. Sorry to interrupt you, Becky.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, that's basically what I was saying anyway.
Yeah,
I feel like there's kind of a part of the story of Resurrections is you're kind of seeing, you're seeing the older guard. You're seeing they're coming to, it feels like they're coming to the end of their careers in a way, although it seems like they're just never going to go away. But I feel like there's also this passing of the torch to the younger guys.
You're gonna be like Tom Cruise. You're just gonna keep going. I'm gonna make you hop on a biplane in this, Charlie. And
you could jump from an airplane.
Yeah.
I'll do anything.
You're good to do that, right?
Yeah.
based on what Charlie was saying, that is definitely a core thematic piece of this. I don't want to talk about it too much, but with the core heroes that are unofficially returning, sort of getting older, and some of them, with what they've seen, with what they've worked with, they've become jaded, they've become disillusioned. Disillusionment is like a big element of this story. Lack of trust, not trusting maybe your own kind, maybe biting your own, maybe backstabbing, maybe not wanting to pass the torch. Maybe these folks don't stand what I thought they stood for. And they can't be trusted. So I'm going to take this into my own hands. There's an element of that with Charlie's character. So that kind of conflict and how to navigate that between different affiliations and how to weave that into the characters on a biological kind of level, with what they're going through and what they've been through in the past. Like that's really what the story is.
And they kind of dive into that a little bit with Village. So
a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's
almost like the hook for what inspired the story. Yeah.
They kind of introduced that in 7 too. Like it's like when they added Chris to the mix. Man, as a fan, I flipped. I'm gonna tell you, when that door opened and you see Chris, I was like, it looked like, oh, it's different. But then it added that value to the story, which was one, like, I'm completely honest with everybody. I'm one of the weird guys that are a Resident Evil fan, and when Biohazard came out, I was so skeptical because of the first person camera, and you know, it's just a me thing. I wasn't like, I bought the game and I didn't play it. I left it there closed. And after a month, like, my friends were like, you need to play the game. You need to play the game. I mean, it's not, you know, it doesn't feel like you're in a Resident Evil game until you're playing it. You need to play it. So I got on it and I instantaneously, like, was hooked by it. Like, that sense of dread from the original games was there, and it was great. I still think that a good DLC or a mod. I saw you guys playing a mod in third person. I tried it.
Oh, was it where they played Survivor?
Yeah.
Was it Survivor? Yeah. They were playing that the other week.
And they were playing 7 too, like Biohazard. They were playing like on a third person mod, but it didn't have mine didn't have a head. So I was like, you know, it looks weird, but it at least it gave me that sense. What I'm trying to get is, like, I understand where you guys are coming from, because this is one of the discussions that I have on our Discord nights, like, progressively. It's like we've seen Chris Redfield gone from this, you know, evolve from this cop. It was kind of like not as rookie as Leon when he gets in on 2, but he was kind of in there. And then it goes to a hardened veteran. And every, you know, I was talking about loss, and there's like these key factors during Chris's story. And for me, I know Resident Evil 6 is not, you know, there's a lot of people that didn't like the game. I think that when we lost Nivens, that was like again, and you can see, like, you know, it's again and again, and it's like Chris going back to the mansion, losing his team. It's all over again. So it's like
I don't like that game, but that is one thing that they did do good with, was that whole aspect of it.
His story in it.
Yeah,
I like
the story.
Yeah.
The game itself, I don't like it. I like the story. I think, you know, it's an open discussion, and we always go and dive into it, and we always go to the same conclusion. I think they try to do so much with it, and that's what happened. That's our take, but definitely it added to the story. Yeah. So, you know, Capcom has expanded the Resident Evil universe in many directions, but some of the best stories, in my opinion, are still waiting to be told by the fans, even though it feels like it's coming to an end. I think I felt that in Village, but then when it ended, I'm like, this is open for so much now. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, if Resurrection becomes a success, which it's already shaping it to be, that's how I feel it. That's how I, like, the community feels it. And that's why they asked me, reach out to these guys, because we really want to know what's happening. Yeah. Would you want to continue telling stories in this universe, or this is your definitive love? You're gonna, after this is your final love letter to the franchise?
I would. I mean, we have plans to do a few more things. I can't keep doing fan films for the rest of my life, unfortunately. It just takes up so much time and effort, and it's great that we get backing from the community. But I don't want to say it's not enough. It's just that we don't have like a big studio backing, and I prefer not to work with the studio because they have all kinds of, no, you got to do this and you got to do that and put this in this movie and here's my agenda, and I don't want to deal with that. I just want to make Resident Evil, and I wanted to highlight something you said earlier about the feeling you get when you play the game.
Yeah,
like when you play Resident Evil 1, 2, whatever, you pop it in and you're in, like you're in it. You know what I mean? And that's when I make these things. That's how I want people that are watching to feel. I want them to feel like they're back in the game playing it. So like, I just don't get that feeling. Like when Welcome to Raccoon City came out, the imagery was cool. The trailer was like, okay. But when they posted like behind the scenes of the sets, I was like, oh wow, they're building the Spencer
really
Mansion.
good.
They're building the RPD. But when you watch the movie, you don't feel like you're there. And I just want to make something like, well, sometimes there's been a couple people that tell me like, why build the sets? Just go do this or that and whatever. But I'm like, yeah, but like when you're in the F-shaped corridor, or when you're in the keeper's room, you have a feeling. You know you know what it looks like. You know what the textures are. Like it's worth it to me to recreate that environment. Anything you can do to help bring you back to that moment in time and get that feeling you did when you first played the game is like, why not? Why wouldn't you do that? So, and it's not just the sets too. It's like the camera movement. How can you kind of want to use the camera to kind of mimic what the fixed angles did back in the day, but then you got to think like, okay, when you move the camera, where do you want to put it? Does this tell the story properly? Does it show the emotion properly? So it's just a combination of a bunch of things that you want to try and do right to really capture, what you felt when you first played the game.
I wanted to mention that I told you guys earlier about the Keeper's Diary, but that scene when Jill's coming into that room, you see the bed and the furniture, everything's in place, and you even had a little thing in there, like she's going for the closet, and that tension when she's just pointing out and coming in the direction, it just made me feel like you just went into the room in the game. And even though we all have played the game probably hundreds of times, you know that closet's popping out and he's coming out of there, but you're like waiting for it. So I was waiting for that moment when I was watching the movie. So. Yeah. And that's why I mentioned it. I think you guys nailed it there. And it was a topic of discussion in our community for like weeks. We were talking about it. And then would somebody new come in and was like, hey, have you watched The Keeper's Diary? And they were like, no. So you should watch it. It's better than anything else out there. And then you mentioned...
That's one of the reasons too that you mentioned with the closet scene.
Yeah.
Why I had switched it up. Because you already know the Keeper's going to pop out of the closet.
Yeah.
So in my mind... if you see him dead in bed, then you're like, wait a minute, is it still going to happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So kind of like the original and the remake did, they had the dog pop out of the window at a different spot. That was my logic behind that. So
the leaker scene, you go to the first floor waiting for the leaker, and it didn't pop out in the remake, and then it comes out on the other floor. So
exactly.
They kind of mixed that up too, and it was super good.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned something about the movies when they came out. I remember I was probably in middle school when the first Resident Evil film came out, and I think it was interesting at the time because I remember that even the soundtrack was playing the music that I love at the time. So it came out and it did good. Then they started expanding and whatnot, and we always talk about how we love kind of like the environment, how is what portrayed in the Apocalypse movie, but after that I feel like it lost the essence and it became like an action film. And
100%.
Yeah. And it's just
we had a podcast with Critical Drinker, and I told him like, just because you put a lightsaber in a Star Wars movie doesn't make it Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You,
So
you remember that the Ultraviolet movie came during that time too, and it was like, what? Wait a minute, is this like the same Resident Evil movie? That like it's
yeah,
I was lost
it's
there.
cool. It's fun. It's like cool action. Like
yeah.
who doesn't like a good action movie? But like when you're adapting something, like come on, adapt it.
And it's a shame, so because not just the Resident Evil movies. Like if you listen to the directors or the people, the writers and everything, some of them don't even play the games. They just like search out for references and hoping that it would, I don't know, it would capture what people are expecting.
I'm sure. I don't know if Paul W.S. Anderson has. I'm sure Johannes Roberts, whatever his name, I'm sure he's played it. Growing up or as a young man or whatever. I'm sure that Zach Krager has played it at some point, and it's a cool, fun game to play, but I just don't think they're into it. I think I get why the studios and the people that own the rights want to make a cool action movie, because that's what pays the bills. That's what makes them money. I would just disagree with the approach of their mentality or their mindset in thinking that the lore as isn't marketable, so you have to change it and do this to sell tickets. Because that's definitely seems like what their approach is, and what I've learned, especially from like Brandon's documentary. I feel like that's kind of what their mentality was, the people behind the movies. But I think it can be done. I think you can. I mean, look at what Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. I think there's a way to find someone who truly loves this material, adapt it into a live action format, while being able to bring an audience in to watch your movie. I think if you find someone that is passionate enough and really loves the subject, and it translates, and people see that, and they're like, wow, this guy or this person really is showing us what this is like for him or her. But we just never got that with Resident Evil, unfortunately.
Would you agree that the closest thing to the lore, I always say that are the CGI movies. Those movies, they stick to the formula some way or another. They feel more like a Resident Evil 6 kind of thing.
They're actually embedded in the timeline themselves.
Yeah.
Like they are a part of the continuity, whereas the games try to recreate or riff off of some collection of ideas from various parts of the continuity. But the CG films, they're interspersed between the games.
I think it's great how everything comes to be, to narrate this story that now it's like long-term storytelling, and it keeps evolving. So I was gonna say we're getting to that final stretch here. So I wanna ask the questions that I always ask to my guests. And what I'm gonna do here, since we have 3 people in here today, I'm just gonna do one each. So I'm gonna start off with Charlie. Charlie, what's your favorite horror movie of all time?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, like almost instantly, I think of The Shining is one of my favorites of all time.
That's mine.
When I was very young, The Omen, the first movie, The Omen, really scared me a lot.
Oh yeah,
I have a lot of fond memories of that, and just like I like the originals of almost everything. Whether it be like Halloween or any movie like Rocky, whatever the movie is, I tend to be like one of these purists that I like the original.
Yeah.
Sometimes the sequel, almost never, the third movie in a series, and so on. But favorite horror movie? Wow. I mean, I just really think Kubrick's a genius, and I love all his films.
He is.
I don't know if you would categorize some of his other films as horror or not. Like Full Metal Jacket. I mean, it's a horror movie. There's a lot of horrific things that happen. I don't know if you'd call it a horror movie, but I love that movie too.
It is a great movie. Yeah.
And I really love the fact that it feels like horror is going through this renaissance of
Oh, yeah.
everyone's like really getting back into horror movies again. And I think that's great because it's one of those genres where you can make a film with not a whole lot of money and still make a really good film.
Yep.
I guess Evil Dead also has a special place. There's just so many.
There's so much good movies, man. The 80s and the 90s with the horror movies are just great.
Yeah, but go for it.
So, Beggy, what's your all-time favorite Resident Evil game?
Oh, it's a really difficult one. My top 3 are probably 4 Remake. I really like 4 Remake. It's like in every detail, very complete.
It was so
very
good, yeah.
fun, super atmospheric and dark. That's like really high. Code Veronica is very high on my list. And then it's like after those two, it's kind of like everything is just like at a pretty even level. Like even like OG RE2, OG RE3, and OG 5 are all like similarly high. And I love all of those. Like I'm actually like a big fan of 5.
5, me
I
too.
think that it actually elevated the action level aspect to a level that we've never seen, and it also has just a lot of really grand stakes and scope. Is Ouroboros, Wesker, recontextualizing the Wesker children, Spencer kind of imbuing the Wesker children with his philosophies, his eugenics mindset. All of those pieces are really strong.
Resident Evil 5 resonated so much with me. This game came out when I was on my second year of biology, and I remember that I didn't own a PS3 at the time, and when they announced it, I ran and I grabbed one. I'm like, this is why I'm getting this now. And when it came out, I've always been, I think it's part of the neurodivergence, but I'm always like, when I'm playing a game or when I'm watching a movie, that's why all this, analyzing stuff comes up, and all the podcasts and everything that we do here in La Bobby that comes to fruition is like, I'm always analyzing and looking, like nitpicking stuff. And I didn't accept it. I was one of those fans that was like, I don't think Wesker's dead. And he's like, what do you mean you don't think Wesker's dead? You just saw the rocket? He just blew his head off. It was inside of a volcano. And I'm like, yeah, but do you think he's so smart? And he was talking about stuff, and maybe we kill a clone in that volcano. We'll never know. And then, we get all this renaissance now on 7, 8, and I'm just waiting for something to come out of it. And then when we're reaching the end of Village and you find all these books and they tied that story back to Spencer, and I'm like, okay, now I'm feeling this. This is going. I like this.
Oh, in Resident Evil 8, when you read that little note at the end.
Oh yeah,
I hated that. Why? Just leave the lore. Don't tamper with the lore.
I love how we connected, man. It made me feel so good. I'm like,
it was like I was the bad guy the whole time. And I'm like, no, you weren't. Shut up.
It's good. So good, man.
Yeah.
Anyways. So, and I'm going to ask Andrew. So, from all the BOWs, from all the creatures in Resident Evil, which is your favorite?
Oh, man. Probably Birkin.
Oof.
In any of his malformations, or any of the tyrants from the original games. I don't know, just the character art from the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know. It just really drew me in. I think they totally bastardized Nemesis in the Resident Evil 3 remake. It's like if they threw a can of tomato soup on a Picasso painting or something.
It's so different. Like, it was so hard to watch. It was hard. Yeah. It was hard.
I would say Birkin though. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is the liquor. How about you, Charlie? Which one you like?
The BOWs? I don't know them all, probably, because I'm not a gamer. But from what I've seen in like movies and stuff, especially the only thing that I really liked about the Netflix series was the liquors. I thought they were like really scary in that, and they looked really cool. But little things I think are like, I don't know if they have them throughout all the games, but like little things I like the crows and the rats and the, I like the dogs a lot too. But like, I love the notion that it's everywhere. It's in spiders. It's in anything, everything.
Yeah.
I just have this thing for crows, so I'm gonna go with crow.
Yeah, that artwork with the crow on top of the skull with the flesh hanging out, that's so good. So good.
He picks the crow out of everything.
The crows
you
and
want
the
to go
rats.
see a crow? Go in your backyard.
The fact that it's not so fantastic looking, I guess, makes it scary.
I'm just messing with you.
Blend in. Yeah.
I love the mine is the liquor. I think Resident Evil 2 was the first game that I played from the franchise. And my older cousin had Resident Evil OG. And after I finished it, he's like, "Are you ready?" I was like, "Well, for what? Do you find that difficult?" And I took me like, I don't know, like maybe 2 months to pass, because I was a kid and I didn't understand a lot of stuff that was happening. And he's like, he gave me one, and I immediately called him. And I'm like, "Dude, what do I do?" He's like, "Just keep playing, you'll figure it out." But there's something about that liquor scene on Resident Evil 2, even though that corny phrase from Leon, but the whole thing about it was just perfect. I have like different versions of the liquors in toys and statues and stuff because I just love the design overall.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, I just want to thank you guys for your time and for being here. I know you guys are busy with this stuff. I really, really hope, and we all hope, that you get, you gather everything that you need to make this happen. Really looking forward to it. Anything else you want to share with the community or you want to say to them? It's yours.
Yeah. Thank you for your support. Appreciate everything you guys are able to help allow us to do. And again, if you do want to check out the campaign, there's all kinds of cool stuff available for you guys to look at and acquire. But again, this is once in a lifetime opportunity. Obviously, we want to hit the goal, but if we don't, it's just never going to happen, and we're going to move on to the next project. So, if you guys want to see these guys back in action, you know what to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the links down below. Charlie, Andrew, Becky, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Until the next time.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.